Ma Shri Aravinda Om Namo Bhagavate Ma Shri Aravinda Om Namo Bhagavate Ma Shri Aravinda.
Good morning and good evening. Welcome to yet another session of psychic education. Sorry. So I am hoping we are more gathered and we have been able to stabilize a little bit more to the beautiful chant that we were just listening. Mother's favorite chant, Om Namo Bhagavate. Not, the most effective according to her. So in gathering the threads of our consciousness, invoking Mother and Sri Aurobindo's divine grace and presence, as we are trying to connect more and more and more with our psychic being. And this is why we are here for the session, so that the psychic in us can come in front. So remembering that, aspiring more towards that, we'll begin this session. Thank you. We're starting with the prayer that we start. Would anybody like to read the prayer, or I can read?
Yes. Lord, we pray to Thee. May we understand better why we are here. May we do better what we have to do here. May we be what we ought to become here, so that Thy will may be fulfilled harmoniously. The Mother.
Thank you. So there's something that in synthesis of yoga, the psychic being, of course, it's mentioned again and again. And then there was this part that I just found really beautiful, and I thought we could read it, and that might help us in, I don't know, falling more in love with ourselves and the psychic being, or it might help us to put in more effort, be convinced to put in more effort towards it. So it's like about 2 pages. This is just kind of leading it towards it. So we'll start with the mind. So this is synthesis of yoga, the ascent of sacrifice 1. So if anybody is willing and have the capacity, we can read this passage, the highlighted one, starting from the mind.
The mind is the sphere of the dualities, and just as it is impossible for it to achieve any absolute truth, but only truths relative or mixed with error, so it is impossible for it to achieve any, it's not clear, absolute good. For moral good exists as a counterpart and corrective to evil and has evil always for its shadow, complement, almost its reason for existence. I think I'll start from the beginning.
Should I
There is
unhighlight
this,
it? Is it better for you if I unhighlight it?
no, on one side of the screen, there's a small window with you. So that is hiding few words.
Uh,
I think.
एक second.
Anyway.
Is this better now?
Huh.
Please. Then you
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
start from the beginning then, from the mind.
Right. Mm. The mind is the sphere of all the dualities, and just as it is impossible for it to achieve any absolute truth, but only truths relative or mixed with error, so it is impossible for it to achieve any absolute good. For moral good exists as a counterpart and corrective to evil, and has evil always for its shadow, complement, almost its reason for existence. But the spiritual consciousness belongs to a higher than the mental plane, and there the dualities cease. For their falsehood confronted with the truth by which it profited through a usurping falsification of it, and evil faced by the good of which it was a perversion or a lurid substitute, are obliged to perish for want of sustenance and to cease. The integral yoga, refusing to rely upon the fragile stuff of mental and moral ideas, put its sole emphasis in the field on three central dynamic processes: the development of the true soul or psychic being, to take the place of the false soul of desire, the sublimation of human into divine love, the elevation of consciousness from its mental to its spiritual and supramental plane, by whose power alone both the soul and the life force can be utterly delivered from the veils and prevarications of the ignorance.
Yes, thank you. So we'll just pause here. So I don't know if we need to pause or not, but so I found this to be really something that, again and again we need to hear, that the integral yoga, refusing to rely upon the fragile stuff of mental and moral ideas. So what Sri Aurobindo is calling as fragile stuff is how I'm living, is how I'm operating, is my everything, my mental and moral ideas. I think this, I think that. I believe this to be true. This is the truth. So, you know how it begins, that because the mind is the sphere of the duality, and it is impossible for it to achieve any absolute truth. This we see in our lives repeatedly. We might not believe it to be true, and yet we have seen it. That's something that, I find to be like the absolute truth, and what I'm saying is right. After some time, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize this, I didn't see this. And everybody, how they feel they're right from where they are standing. Because we are not that, we are more than that. So the integral yoga, refusing to rely upon the fragile, which breaks easily, right? So the fragile stuff of mental and moral ideas puts its whole emphasis in this field on three central dynamic processes, these being the development of the true soul or psychic being. So this is what we are doing, right? Trying to develop a psychic being further, give it more strength, saying, yes, we want you, please come, rule, take your kingdom. But, we are not that clear. We keep going back and forth because, of course, there is a soul of desire, which still want things from, we know, whatever. So the development of the true soul or psychic being to take the place of the false soul of desire, the sublimation of human into divine love, the elevation of consciousness from its mental, which we consider to be the highest, that, again, the stress can't be made, to its spiritual and supramental plane, by whose power alone both the soul and the life force can be utterly delivered from the veils and prevarications of the ignorance. So, pausing here for any comment, elaboration, reflection, else we move forward. Okay, so if anybody else is willing, we can go further. So, this is where the whole thing starts. The base is now built.
Yes. It is the very nature of the soul or the psychic being to turn towards the divine truth as the sunflower to the sun. It accepts and clings to all that is divine for progressing towards divinity, and draws back from all that is perversion or a denial of it, from all that is false and undivine. Yet the soul is at first but a spark, and then a little flame of Godhead burning in the midst of a great darkness. For the most part, it is veiled in its inner sanctum, and to reveal itself, it has to call on the mind, the life force, and the physical consciousness, and persuade them as best they can to express it ordinarily. It succeeds at most in suffusing their outwardness with its inner light, and modifying with its purifying finesse their dark obscurities or their coarser mixture. Even when there is a formed psychic being able to express itself with some directness in life, it is still in all but a few. s- I'll just read that again. It is still in all but a smaller portion of the being, no bigger in the mass of the body than the thumb of a man, was the image used by the ancient seers, and it is not always able to prevail against the obscurity or ignorant smallness of the physical consciousness, the sureness, the mistaken surenesses of the mind, or the arrogance and vehemence of the vital nature. The soul is obliged to accept the human mental, emotive, sensational life as it is, its relations, its activities, its cherished forms and figures. It has to labor to disengage and increase the divine element in all this relative truth mixed with a continual falsifying error. This love turned to the uses of the animal body or the satisfaction of the vital ego. This life of an average manhood shot with rare and pale glimpses of Godhead and the darker luridities of the demon and the brute, unerring in the essence of its will, It is obliged often under the pressure of its instruments to submit to mistakes of action, wrong placement of feeling, wrong choice of person, errors in the exact form of its will, in the circumstances of its expression of the infallible inner ideal. Yet is there a divination within, I'll read that again. Yet is there a divination within it, which makes it a surer guide than the reason or than even the highest desire, and through apparent errors and stumblings, its voice can still lead better than the precise intellect and the considering mental judgment.
Yeah, should we
This
pause
was,
here? Mm,
yeah,
yeah,
sure.
thank you. So we started from here, and even, just this line, I don't know, felt so beautiful that it is the very nature of the soul or the psychic being to turn towards the divine truth as the sunflower to the sun. It doesn't has to be taught that. It's a very natural thing for a sunflower to turn towards the sun. So it is the very nature of the soul or the psychic being to turn towards the divine truth as the sunflower to the sun. So after this, they have even mentioned, he has even told us why, these days it's getting more and more difficult, how the collective, how it's influencing, and yet it's so beautiful. So it accepts and clings to all that is divine or progressing towards divinity. So even if I'm doing something wrong, saying something wrong, I always get a small sign, right? I always get a sensation, a feeling, a poke that don't do this, don't say this. I feel the drip, that lowering of my consciousness, that dullness inside if I'm going wrong, because that is not my true nature. And draws back from all that is a perversion or denial of it, from all that is false and undivine. So this is the truth of my nature, although it's now mixed and, complicated and corrupted, but at the source, once these things clear off that I have surrounded myself with or that I have been put into, this is the essence. And yet he says, because the soul is at first but a spark and then a little flame of Godhead, because it's a small thing first. It's not, it just can't light up the whole room. So is at first but a spark and then a little flame of Godhead burning in the midst of a great darkness. The ignorance in me, the inertia of me, it's a great darkness and I see it. I see it. So much of myself is hidden from me. And that when I discover it, I see that, oh, that too is there, this too is there. So inertia in me, inertia leads to ignorance. Like the covering of things is the basic thing of inertia, not just lethargy, not just laziness. It covers. So because initially the soul is a spark and a little flame of Godhead in the midst of great darkness, for the most part it is veiled in its inner sanctum, and to reveal itself, it has to call on the mind, the life force, and the physical consciousness. So because it cannot itself do much because it's very small, it uses the mind, the vital life forces, the physical consciousness, and persuade them as best as they can to express it ordinarily. It succeeds at most in suffusing their outwardness with its inner light. So it's not able to, to straight away just light up the whole room. So it succeeds at most in suffusing their outwardness with the inner light and modifying with its purifying fineness, their dark obscurity or their coarser mixture. So this is when it's small, and he says further that even when there is a formed psychic being able to express itself with some directness in life, when there's more focus, when it's there, it is still in all but a few, a smaller portion of the being, no bigger in the mass of the body than the thumb of a man. This we have all heard. But recognizing the power of it again. So this was the image used by the ancient seers, and it is not always able to prevail against the obscurity or ignorant smallness of the physical consciousness. So even though it is formed, it is not always able to prevail against the obscurity or ignorant smallness of the physical consciousness, the mistaken surenesses of the mind. See, the mistaken surenesses of the mind or the arrogance and vehemence of the vital nature. So this surenesses, I think, is अगर वहां पे थोड़ी चोट पड़ जाए, if we are able to maybe hold that, move the roots of this a little bit, that is really helpful. So the mistaken surenesses of the mind or the arrogance and vehemence of the vital nature. I would not accept it directly. If I was to just, discuss this with myself superficially, I would say, oh, no, I'm not arrogant. Oh, no, there is no vehemence in me. And yet, if I don't know, don't justify, don't deny it. If I just observe my thoughts and actions, I will see that arrogance. I will see that vehemence. I don't have to deny it or accept it. It is there. So the soul is obliged to accept the human mental, emotive, sensational life as it is. Its relations, its activities, its cherished forms and figures. Cherished. Vishal's favorite line from Savitri, right? And Monica's too, apparently, that when life's cherished guests are left behind from Savitri.
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to read some lines from Savitri again. Yes. It's this so beautiful, right, that we just read. And I think Shivandu somewhere says it is like a constitutional ruler. मतलब कोई power नहीं है, right? It has no
Your
power.
voice is not clear today. It's
Oh,
coming.
hold on. Let me put it off my headset. Sometimes it's the headset. Just somebody else can talk. I'll just figure it out. Is this any better?
Oh, perfect. Yes, thank you.
I think somewhere he has written, I don't know if it's Life Divine or Synthesis, that it's like a constitutional ruler. Basically he doesn't have any power. And so the whole goal, and two things, we have also talked about, there are two ways, right? You can go through the, above the mind, above the head, or through the psychic, through the heart. And Shivandu says, very beautifully, and that is its very own. He said, if that can be done, that is preferred, because that is its very own. Whose very own? It's the divine's very own. Matlab usi ka hai, right? It's that child is of the divine. The mind you can go, and then he says, I mean, again, to each his own. Not saying whatever works for. So we cannot judge, but the mind, you go above the mind, and you feel, and that is why a lot of experience of people who have had, where they see, kind of this world is a play, right? Like, oh, it's there is a little bit of uh, uh, indifference almost, because you just see it as a play, and you see, okay, it's like, this really is just, and that, I think, also maybe came to why, like, a lot of this concept of Maya. And but the psychic, so the bhakta feels it naturally. But then again, I think Shobandhu says very beautifully that, so bhakta, you can have that union, but now we are trying here is to make the psychic the master of all the different parts of the being. So that takes time. And the other thing you were saying, Tarun, that uh you know he so I had this question, right? Like, why is it so small to start? It's a silly question maybe, but I just had this. And it's because it is, I think we read earlier, it struck me, it is a spiritual consciousness, but it is a tiny seed. And how does it grow? It grows through these experiences. तो उसको भी तो मतलब it needs nourishment. So it is using the experience that you have in your physical, in your vital, in your mental. But because it is a spiritual consciousness, it knows. So then it will say, so then there's this whole passage on pain, right? So pain was the firstborn or something like that, right? I was just going to read that passage, and it is just like, because that was required. Otherwise, how that consciousness, no other consciousness can distinguish what is bad, what is good. So only psychic can know. So psychic uses, then so pain comes, right? We'll do crazy things, and then psychic will grow. So that again, Shivandu explains so beautifully in karma and rebirth, right? That whole karmic theory is so. I used to always question that. Yeah, how this is, you can just say, oh, you must have done really all these terrible things and this and that, and God knows what else, you know. And I once jokingly, I don't know if I've used this example, my mother still talks like this. So I tell her, I said, then according to you, the Pandavas are probably the worst people in the world. I mean, just think about their life. They suffered one after the other. Even at the end, they didn't get their kingdom. Right? I mean, so it's so ironic the way we think. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked, but yes, so the psychic grows, and that's what I found so beautifully when we were reading it. I said, that makes sense. It is using the experience to grow.
Yes, a very good, I guess, analogy you have given. Seed is so small, right? Like we can hold it between our thumb and our finger. And I was just discussing it with somebody else also the other day that if you look at a fully grown tree, especially if it's huge, because somehow size matter to us. So, and if I'm holding a seed, and if I'm looking at that tree, and if say I was to tell this to my child that see this becomes this, it's very hard to believe. It's like, how is this possible? Like it like, and if we talk about miracles, so if this is not a miracle, what is? How can this, solid, non-living looking thing with no life can grow into this and give so much life? It's just unbelievable. So it's not that, and all the seeds are capable of becoming something or the other, if not trees. So what am I watering? What have I sown? What am I doing to make my seed, alive, bring life into it? And that's how the psychic being grows. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that analogy. And the meditation in that we had shared in Amita Didi's voice, which were again the words of the mother. how it was said that to make it grow, we have to throw, the things that we are seeing, the negativities, the positivities, the rejections go into the psychic fire, the aspirations go into the psychic fire, because then it's not that it's not there or it would actually help if we are doing it, but it shows that what is my focus? How badly do I want it? So that's how it grows, because we are just saying that this happened, this is not important, this is also yours, this is also I'm offering, this is also I'm offering, I don't want it, I don't want it. That bhajan that sometimes, Monica played, that lo ma ye, karm tumhara, in the second line, ye punya tumhara, paap tumhara, again going with the karma theory, that it's all yours, I'm offering it. And yeah. Yeah, anybody else if they would like to say anything on what we have read, discussed? Okay, so I'll just continue with that just a little bit more. So the soul is obliged to accept the human mental, emotive, sensational life as it is, its relations, its activities, its cherished forms and figures. It has to labor to disengage and increase the divine element in all this relative truth mixed with a continual falsifying error. This love turned to the uses of the animal body or the satisfaction of the vital ego. This life of an average manhood, shot with rare and pale glimpses of Godhead, and the darker luridities of the demon and the brute. How it's all the mixture and how it knows right from wrong, truth to false. But because it doesn't have the dominance yet, so the soul is obliged to accept all this. Yeah. So moving forward, anybody who would want to read? I'll read.
I can read, but I'm not sure if my voice is okay. Is it clear?
Yeah, now it's perfectly clear. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know what was the issue. Okay. From unerring, is that right?
Yes, thank you.
Unerring in the essence of its will, it is obliged, often under the pressure of its instruments, to submit to mistakes of action, wrong placement of feeling, wrong choice of person, errors in the exact form of its will, in the circumstances of its expression of the infallible inner ideal. Yet is there a divination within it which makes it a surer guide than the reason, or than even the highest desire. And through apparent errors and stumblings, its voice can still lead better than the precise intellect and the considering mental judgment. The voice of the soul is not what we call conscience, for that is only a mental and often conventional erring substitute. It is a deeper and most seldom heard call. Yet to follow it when heard is wisest. Even it is better to wander at the call of one's soul than to go apparently straight with the reason and the onward moral mentor. But it is only when the life turns towards the divine that the soul can truly come forward and impose its power on the outer members. For itself, a spark of the divine, to grow in flame towards the divine, is its true life and its very reason of existence. Beautiful. You want to continue?
No, I think this is enough, and I think we
Okay.
have already read 2 more lines. I didn't realize, but that's fine. It's always good to reread it. So
Yeah, I thought that's what I was like. I said,
yeah.
did we just read this part? But yeah, it is actually. Yeah, it's very beautiful, this passage.
So again, just taking it up a little bit. So although it knows right from wrong, unerring in its essence of its will. So it is obliged, you're talking about the psychic being, under pressure of its instruments, how we were told that, the vital, the mental, and the physical consciousness, so those are its instruments, to submit to mistakes of action. So although it knows it's the wrong action, but it submits wrong placement of feeling, wrong choice of person, errors in the exact form of its will, in the circumstances of its expression of the infallible inner ideal. How much faith it must have at its end, that how one day it will all be okay, not maybe in this lifetime, but it's all leading us towards something higher, to be sitting. If one thing is one doesn't know, like when I consciously am doing something, and if I don't know it's a mistake, it's easier for me to do it, right? So I'm like, okay, this is also confusing, that is also confusing. So, okay, I'll choose this. But to sit there, to see, to know, and yet allow, or I don't know, the helplessness, I don't feel there would be any, because one knows where the end is. So it's obliged under pressure of its instruments to submit to mistakes of action, wrong placement, wrong choices of persons, error in the exact form of its will, in the circumstances of its expression, and of the infallible inner ideal. And that is why, I guess, Mother says whenever somebody asks any questions about confusions, clarifications, chaos, direction in life, her answer is connect with your psychic being, and everything will be shown. So many veils will fall, and all your confusions will go away. So, yet is there a divination within it which makes it a surer guide than the reason or than even the highest desire. And through apparent errors and stumblings, its voice can still lead better than the precise intellect and the considering mental judgment. So there is something, that divination within it, the psychic being, which makes it a surer guide than the reason, which I think in my limited reasoning, that is my highest tool. So I might have the highest desire to, I don't know, this thing that I'm doing might benefit 20,000 people or million people. And yet, if the voice inside is not agreeing, it is not the right thing. So higher than reason, than the highest desire, and through apparent errors and stumblings, its voice can still lead better than the precise intellect and the considering mental judgment. It takes a lot of time for us to reach here, because कैसे छोड़ दे दिमाग को, कैसे छोड़ दें, इतना उसने आगे पहुंचाया है. So again, the same thing which was the helper becomes the bar, and we have seen that, but it might take a lot more hammering and faith and grace for it to be let go fully. This voice of the soul is not what we call conscious, conscience. For that is only a mental and often conventional erring substitute. It is a deeper and more seldom heard call, yet to follow it when heard is wisest. So even if, I say, this is something that I'm being told to do, so Sri Aurobindo is saying even that is mental and often erring. And the call of psychic being is even different, higher than that my conscience is telling me this. And to follow it is the wisest. Even it is better to wander at the call of one's soul than to go apparently straight with the reason and the outward moral mentor. This is how we are kind of scared to follow the path, to stay between the drawn line, to stay on the path and not wander into the forest or the unknown. That you'll fall, you don't know what will happen to you. What are you doing? It's safer here. It's known. And yet, Sri Aurobindo is telling us that it is better to wander at the call of one's soul, not get settled and wander, than to go apparently straight with the reason and the outward moral mentor. It might look the most foolish. It's reminding me, I don't remember the exact words, but when Khalil Gibran says that, they laugh at me that I won't sell my days for gold. And I laugh at them that they think my days, I don't know, my days have a price, something like this. So let whoever is laughing laugh, and it's really beautiful. But it is only when the life turns towards the divine that the soul can truly come forward. When the life, like right now, my life, where is it turned towards? What are my goals? Where am I heading towards? Not just in theory in my mind, but practically, what am I doing? Where am I spending my time? What is important to me? Where is my day going? How many hours am I giving? How many minutes to this, that, awareness, purification, clarity? So it is only when the life turns towards the divine that the soul can truly come forward and impose its power on the outer members, for itself a spark of the divine, to grow in flame towards the divine. Is its true life and its very reason of existence. So it has been born to do this, to turn the soul towards the divine. Any thing on this by anyone?
Yeah, Taru, I have one confusion. When, like earlier in so many talks, I think in Sunlit Path also, I think somewhere, is it not written that till you find your psychic being, you should rely on reasons? Because, till then reason makes sense. And only once you have your psychic being, or, you connect to your psychic being, then you can go with your intuitive decision. So I was little confused with what we read now, because we're saying that we always follow reasons, but when I'm not there yet, then what would be my, what should I do? Like, should I go by reason, or should I still go by a path which I feel intuitive, but I'm not sure. My psychic has not developed totally now. So, like when it comes to taking like decisions and all, then should we rely on reasons or no?
I like the way you started the question. You said you just have one confusion, how blessed you are that there is just one. Let's start with that. And Shweta, it's like if there's, when you were saying, the visual that came to me was, say there's a child who's learning to float or swim. And you know how with children we put them in that round floater thingy so that they are safe, you know? So the question is, when do we know it's all right for the child to be removed from that floater and it would not, drown or get hurt? So we do it in kind of stages, right? Phases. We take him or her out, and maybe we are holding him, and so we are trying to see where one is going, right? Like, because unless I give it up, unless I remove it, I won't know whether the child is ready. So I think for a lot of it, if I'm connected within, if I'm paying attention, if I'm hearing some direction, I might have to try it, knowing that even if I fail, let's see what happens, because what has so much of my intelligence, where has it gotten me? So I think it's a very individual decision, but you're absolutely right. We have been told to use reason till the psychic being has come in front. And now that when we are doing psychic education, it is being told that reason has its limits, which we know mentally. And yet, if we are hearing something from within, if we are getting a direction, if there's a voice that's telling us to do something and the reason is telling us something else, and mostly it's about, the protocols, the norms, the most intelligent thing to do. So if I'm ready, willing to rise above the protocols or to go wandering, even though there's a straight concrete path in front of me, that's something that one will have to choose for oneself in faith.
So yeah, and if right now I really don't know what I should do and I don't have a voice which is guiding me, then I should go by reason, right?
Yeah, and I
Because
think
yeah,
simultaneously offering, right? Aspiring, that saying
yeah,
that I
yeah,
don't,
yeah.
right,
Hmm.
know what is
Totally.
right. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that is a continuous thing. Yeah, I don't know. And yet, what should I do? Should I go by reason? You know?
yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
yeah. To, yeah. Surrendering. Yeah. Thank you.
I think that last part, I think Taru, you said is very nice. I think that is really the key. You offer it because, yes, I mean, I think, I don't know, certainly, I think I certainly haven't, or most of us, I would say we are still groping on darkness, right? Uh, so I know I am, but that is the part that, sometimes you have these moments, right? I think that when the inner lamps are lit. So I think we who are here have all felt that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So we are, in that sense, there's a grace that, Mother has chosen, so that I think is there. So in a way, then that helps, right? I think that's a beautiful way to think that what Taru said. Just offer it. Say, Mother, I don't know, but here I'm doing this based on my best capacity at this point. Then slowly she
Yeah.
will, make you learn a little bit better. I think makes us learn.
Yeah. Thank you, Vishal.
And I was just just like, this is so beautiful what Shubhendu, it's like I was reading this line somewhere just the other day. This, what we just read about the psychic, he says, right, in Savitri, it's, I think, in Secret Knowledge, a treasure of honey in the combs of God. I mean, this line alone is like magical. Like, look at the description, right? The combs of God, honeycomb. And so this, that is, it's like that honey in the combs of God. The imagery is so beautiful. A splendor burning in a tenebrous cloak. It is our glory of the flame of God, our golden fountain of the world's delight, and immortality cowled in the cape of death. But it has been covered by the escape of death, the shape of our unborn divinity. And here he goes us. And then, then there's a line there. Always we bear in us a magic key concealed in life's hermetic envelope. It's like deep, envelope mate is like right there that is concealed. So, and I mean, I'm sure we've all heard this. I mean, this is, I think, one of the biggest. I think, I mean, there's so many gifts, but Savitri, I think Mother has also said, just you just read it like, without any preconceived notion, and it actually awakens the psyche. I think we are here on this thing, right? So just you read Savitri without any preconceived notion. You can pick some passages. The other day, it was so beautiful. I think it was Javali had said that, I almost felt I should do this. She said we had memorized, Adoration of Divine Mother. And it was like such a beautiful thing. I said, oh my God, that is incredible. But there are many people who tell me, that they just have memorized certain passages. You can just like 8, 10, 12 lines, and then they say it every night before sleeping. But obviously, whatever appeals to each of us. I thought that was such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? These lines is exactly what we read in Synthesis, right? That this magic key, this psychic being, that's a burning witness in the sanctuary, regards through time and the blind walls of form. Timeless light is in his hidden eyes. He sees the secret things no word can speak, right? Like how even if it's going wrong, it sees that people are doing things wrong, like it has to. So he sees the secret things no words can speak and knows the goal of the unconscious world and the heart of the mystery of the journeying ears. Thank you for reminding us of these things. There's a message. Yes, yes, Shilpa, it's very beautiful. Yeah. When we have passed beyond knowings, then we shall have the knowledge. Reason was the helper, reason was the bar. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Any other sharing or reflection? So since we are almost at the end of the time, I think we can just continue today with what we were reading. There's one more paragraph after this, which is again about the psychic being. And then we won't be taking up anything from the book today. So if anybody is willing, they can read the next passage starting from here at a certain stage.
At a certain stage in the yoga, when the mind is sufficiently quieted and no longer supports itself at every step on the sufficiency of its mental circuits, when the vital has been steadied, with its feet sunk in the
Are you again having issues in seeing this? And subdued and is no
and,
longer,
sub-
yeah.
and and subdued and is no longer constantly insistent on its own demand, and desire, when the physical has been sufficiently altered not to bury altogether the inner flame under the mask of its own outwardness, obscurity, or inertia, an inmost being long hidden within and felt only its rare influences, is able to come forward and illumine the rest and take up the lead of the sadhana. Its character is a one pointed orientation towards the divine or the highest, one pointed and yet plastic in action and movement. It does not create a rigidity of direction like the one pointed intellect or a bigotry of the regnant idea or impulse like the one pointed vital force. It is at every moment with supple sureness that it points the way to the truth, automatically distinguishes the right step from the false, extricates the divine Godward movement from the clinging mixture of the undivided. Its action is like a searchlight, showing up all that has to be changed in the nature. It has in it a flame of will, insistent of perfection, on an alchemic on an alchemic transmutation of all the inner and outer existence. It sees the divine essence everywhere, but rejects the mere mask and the distinguishing figure. It insists on truth, only will and strength and mastery, on joy and love and beauty, but on a truth of abiding knowledge that surpasses the mere practical momentary truth of the ignorance, on the inward joy and not on mere vital pleasure, for it prefers rather a purifying suffering and sorrow to disregarding satisfactions, on love winged upward and not tied to the stake of egoistic craving, of with its feet sunk in the mire, on beauty restored to its priesthood of interpretation of the eternal, on strength and will and mastery as instruments not of the ego but of the spirit. Its will is for the divinization of life, the expression through it of a higher truth, its dedication to the divine and the eternal.
Yes, thank you. So we have read how it wants to go further and further, and what is its final thing. Just because of the line, just quickly I'll read this. But the most intimate character of the psychic is its pressure towards the divine through a sacred love, joy, and oneness. It is a divine love that it seeks most. It is the love of the divine that is its spur, its goal, its star of truth shining over the luminous cave of the nascent or the still obscure cradle of the newborn Godhead within us. So, in the first long stage of its growth and immature existence, it has leaned on earthly love, affection, tenderness, goodwill, compassion, benevolence, on all beauty and gentleness, and fineness, and light, and strength, and courage, on all that can help to refine and purify the grossness and commonness of human nature, but it knows how mixed are these human movements at their best, and at their worst, how fallen and stamped with the mark of ego and self-deceptive sentimental falsehood, and the lower self-profiting by the imitation of a soul movement. So at once emerging, it is ready and eager to break all the old ties and imperfect emotional activities and replace them by a greater spiritual truth of love and oneness. This breaking has to happen, this stepping up from, how even Shweta, when you were saying that, how do we know? How do we know? So unless we take it off, we won't know if we are ready. So this is what the psychic does. It is ready and eager to break all the old ties, imperfect activities, and replace them with spiritual truth of love and oneness. It may still admit the human forms and movements, but on condition that they are turned towards the one alone. It accepts only the ties that are helpful, the heart's and mind's reverence for the Guru, the union of the God seekers, a spiritual compassion for this ignorant human and animal world and its people, the joy and happiness and satisfaction of beauty that comes from the perception of the divine everywhere. I think I'll stop because this would just go on and on. So if we want to read more, we can, on Synthesis of Yoga, the Ascent of Sacrifice 1. It's beautiful. And just a reminder that, Mother has said that if one wants to reach Aurobindo, one should go by topics and not, how we read a fiction book that's starting from beginning to end. And for somebody who has read so much, and I think most of us, we read too much, it's very hard. It's very hard to just start anywhere in between and just feel okay doing it, because it feels कि नहीं कुछ तो समझ नहीं आ रहा, कुछ तो छोड़ दिया होगा. Those are the things that we can slowly transcend. And in case we, on our website, under ebooks, lot of books are there. I don't know if Synthesis of Yoga is there or not, but online it's very readily available and we can read more of this.
Yeah, I like this, that what you did, with like tying this. So I find this very helpful. Just like, we're reading from one, then maybe you pick a passage from Synthesis, or when we read some lines from Savitri and or Life Divine. It's a very nice, let's as I feel, and I think as you said, topic we can explore different ways. And I just want to say one thing. I was reminded, I didn't know this thought came, you said that the other day, and I remembered reading that too. Something about people in the ashram, and some of them like really, a lot of issues, and then they send a list to the mother. I think, then mother says, but he puts stamps very nicely, right? You remember that example? And see, I was just thinking, I mean, all of us, everybody, all of us here, we have her presence in us, right? That is, she says, right, I'm in you. So I'm just thinking, mother saying to, how can you tell, somebody, like she'll always find something good in the child, right? Like, कि कुछ तो ठीक है, but she's looking at that only. And she's saying, "Acha, that seems, a bit, thoda sa, it is strong, right? It is, and that's what, she used to say, it was so beautiful. She used to say, I just look at the psyche. And, there are people on the outward being, they have all these, terrible qualities. They get very angry, they're very impatient, and so that's why this human judgment, that is like you was reading this passage. But yes, we have to use reason. That was that, I mean, most of us. That is why it is a flawed judgment. We are not seeing that person's psychic. We cannot. I mean, so but mother could. I was reminded of that. Such a beautiful example.
Yes, thank you. You know, in the book, The Mother, when Sri Aurobindo has written the qualities associated with Maheshwari, you know, there he has specifically mentioned that, you know, unlimited compassion. So it's because with our limited being, like if I look at myself, if I'm, you know, kind of discussing something with someone or sharing or I don't know, advising, I just step back. I just say, okay, now, you know, it's like, Joe, you know, whatever is your destiny or whatever is your way and stuff. And there's a stepping back because if I step too in, I don't know how to maintain that thing. And yet, when we hear about the, like you were talking, right, the mother's compassion, the mother's grace, the mother's generosity, it is beyond human. It is like the unlimited aspect of it when we look at our life, when I look at my life, the mistakes I have done and am doing and will continue to do. And yet, when I call out in a second, I feel her presence. So it just feels that, oh my God, like how much can she give and how much can I err? And yet that's how it is. So, yeah, it's a beautiful reminder to know how much we are loved and how much there is the compassion and grace of the divine in our life. We might see it, we might not see it, but life feels more beautiful when we are able to see it. Anything by anybody? So this is where we'll end the session. So thanking grace, thanking divine for the beauty of the session, for the expansion, for the wideness that is my possibility, for the love and the compassion and the generosity of grace that is in all our lives. May all lives be able to touch, recognize, appreciate, blossom in the beauty of that love and compassion and make it bigger and bigger and bigger on earth. Thank you.